Welcome everyone back to Messianic Ministries Inc. podcast. Today we got Pastor Joe again. Thank you everyone for liking and commenting on our last podcast, trying to help this platform grow. So Pastor, to recap on our last podcast, we brought up a lot of good things that needed to be aired out for the people to learn from us and to just answer some questions that people might have or whatnot. Do you want to recap on anything that we talked about last podcast about the transition from the old church Christian outreach to our new Hebraic walks? Or is there anything else that you would like to recap on?
Well, I just want to make sure that we're trying to move on from the old way of doing things as far as our Christian understanding, which was not entirely bad, but here in Roswell, we've been trying to make an impact, and I believe we have through our Home for Men, which we've had for a number of years, and there's no resentment of leaving the other ministry. I think it was not the way I wanted it to go as far as the breakup, but when one door closes, as they say in scripture, Yahweh says, I will open up another one. And that process with Pastor Otero and Olive Tree Ministries, which has been a great blessing to us, because in a time of when we were going through all kinds of hardships, they were there to help us see us through all the difficult times and still help us as he comes down and ministers. And I think the people there are awesome and loving and great, and we can learn a lot of lessons from what is called agape love. And I think that now that we're coming into our second year of the Hebraic teachings and also following the Shabbats, it's kind of set us free from anything other than focusing our lives on Yeshua and the purpose.
So you did mention a word that someone had asked here in our ministry, the word Christian. When you say Christian, you're not pinpointing a certain church building, quote unquote. You're speaking of the old church world way of thinking, right? The religious.
Yeah, well, there's traditional church that most people believe on doing what's right. But behind the scenes, which I've always tried to keep open with you guys and point things out, as we begin to see, because what you see in most churches is the front, it looks beautiful, it looks nice, but behind the scenes there's a lot of chaos and a lot of turmoil and a lot of sin and a lot of greed and a lot of things that they try to hide from the congregation. And us, we try to be up front with everything and everybody since day one. And so when you use the term Christian, I believe it's coming from more of a, at least for myself, from a traditional standard that they believe they're doing what's right. Like they believe Sunday is the Shabbat. And we know from day one that Yahweh never changed that, or some even say Paul changed it, which he could not. So there's a lot of trying to make sense of what the Torah really teaches, and how what we call the Brit Hadashah, which is the New Testament, and what Paul spoke about, even Yeshua always referred to the 5 books of Moses.
Right.
So we are more trying to set the pace on really what Messianic living is, but they call it Christian. But truly, there was no word Christian until way later, about 200 years almost later from when you research. But it's Messianic, and that's what we try to walk in.
I think what's a funny but interesting topic is when we witness to people or we say we're Messianic or we're practicing the Hebraic side of the scriptures, and that's what we're trying to teach the congregation. I think people get a big misunderstanding, which a lot of people might think you have to deal with a lot when they think, oh, y'all are Jews,
Yes.
or y'all are practicing Judaism, and do you have any input on that topic?
Well, from my understanding, in the beginning, I don't know if you remember or not, when we were transitioning way back in 2014, 15, somewhere around there, that yes, we were doing a lot of rabbinical things that, like we would do, the whole teachings of rabbinical, because that was the information that was out there. But as you learn from your mistakes, and that's what I would like to put, that we're not, just like there's not a perfect Christian or not a perfect church, and we're probably far from being perfect in anything in our lives, but we stick to the scriptures, and the way we study is not from a commentary, but you use Hebraic words. Like if you would, most people, you don't really know that Yeshua is his given name that is in Hebrew. It's not Jesus. It's translated into Jesus. Actually, it's spelled differently in the Greek. But when you look up the Hebraic way in the Hebrew words, it sets a different tone for us to say, hey, wait a minute. Once you realize that, you go back to the Torah, and he says, hey, the first thing you must do is keep my Sabbath and keep it holy. And so that's what we have, a holy meeting on the Shabbat. And switching from Sunday to Saturday was not an easy thing to do. And I remember people that I spoke to when we were doing Sundays were saying, hey, the Messianics say, you should really transfer to Shabbats. And that was a struggle in the beginning, but now we know that it's a blessing and it honors Yahweh. So I think the whole Christianity has become more secular now today. Traditional, trying to do what's right, versus what the Bible says. And so we try to stick with the scriptures of telling you and I to abstain from certain ways of living. So there's a lot of corruption in the fellowships today that the congregation may not see. And I believe that everybody has a right to go talk to the pastor or leaders when they see or hear something that is wrong. Everyone should question. How come they're not doing this? Or how come they don't believe in this? Right. And it'll cause you to research and go back. At least it should. Go back and study and find out the truth.
Yeah. So what is it that, for instance, like when it comes to your understanding of faith, I understand, and a lot of people have noticed that it has changed since transitioning to a Hebraic perspective. How do you feel about that? Like, you said it's hard and it was a struggle.
It was hard and a struggle because when you're following a ministry, meaning you're not just being the pastor of this church, but you're taking orders from a head mother church, as it's called to us, and they're watching you, wanting to everything that you are doing. It causes conflicts amongst yourself, because if Yahweh is speaking to the man and saying, asking the man a personal, hey, I want you to follow this way or teach this in your teachings, and all it is that we're conveying to the congregation about holiness. At least we should. When you have that, it's very hard, because you have to do what's right before Yahweh, or should you do what's right to please a man? When I say please a man, I mean the teachings that come from what is known how we used to be. Yeah. Church planning, discipleship, all those holiness, sanctification. We taught on the Holy Spirit, of course, and different things. But when you have somebody upon you is trying to always direct you to follow their way, that's where it becomes hard. And serving Yahweh should be a challenging thing to do.
And free also. Right?
Also free, yes. So now we feel free.
Yeah.
We are not bogged down by leaderships or different. Like there's times when if I wanted a guest speaker, I had to call all the way to California just to ask, and to me that was ridiculous. If I wanted to do anything, it's like, okay, you got to ask, and it's like that with a lot of ministries, not just me.
Right.
But they call that accountability. But the way I saw it is that if you want somebody, they even try to tell you don't hang around with this person or that person. It's such a, because we're here about to reconcile everybody back to Yahweh, everybody back to Yeshua, and that's a tough goal as it is. Let alone you have somebody else trying to tell you.
Well, especially with people that have different opinions about, if you say Yeshua, you get looked down on, or they're like, what is he doing? What is Pastor Joe doing there in Roswell? What's going on? Why is he saying all these words?
Yeah.
But we do still believe in order, right? We're not getting away from order, discipline, the ministry, and what's expected from the people, or just the teachings and all. So I think that's another challenging thing that you have to go through as the teacher of this ministry. But what are some new spiritual practices or traditions that you have gone through or now emphasizing on that's embraced your new Hebraic journey?
Well, I think I found more what we would call shalom. What we would call peace. Yes, it's a struggle and all those things I still believe in discipleship. I just have a little bit more tolerance to deal with somebody who's trying to make the transition themselves or trying to make changes in their lives.
Yeah. And
to not be dogmatic on, if no one believes you, shun them. No, that's not what we have to do. Sometimes coming from the gang life, we had an order and things that we had to do, and sometimes I feel like that's a lot what happened in ministry with these churches that are there. They, have to follow direction, and it's my way or the highway. Well, following Yeshua, being free, and walking in the light of that, it's it's a different perspective now. It's like you don't have to stand in a line of things. Now you're able to witness and teach the way Yeshua desired for us. There's always going to be naysayers, right, as far as coming to the name Yeshua. But once again, I always go back to the Hebraic way. If you go through the Greek way, which is not a bad thing, but it's the original language. It's the Father allowed Yeshua and the disciples to speak. And so it has more clarity, it has more understanding, and it does bring you a sense of peace in your life that you're able to share. And when you're bogged down by all kinds of religion, you're always being insecure that somebody's trying to offend you or change you. And that's not the case. I think now that we're trying to study, read, and pray, a lot of prayer, yeah, that helps us through to see the other person's point of view and trying to win them over to Yeshua and his correct name.
And also, that's good to touch on that as well. When transitioning to using all these Hebraic terms, and you taught us in the ministry here that Yeshua does mean salvation.
Yes. And
while we utilize that name opposed to the Greek Jesus, like the world says, mm-hmm, it does feel more of a relationship. Like there's more of a closeness, mm-hmm, to getting to know the intimate part of Yeshua, yes, and Yahweh. So how does Torah minister to you now differently opposed to compared to your previous perspective?
Well, I believe that you see from the eyes of the Father in heaven now, it's more of a not trying to compact scriptures just to say the scripture. But now you're led to understand how, first and foremost, we read in Leviticus 23, these are my seasons, which is Yahweh saying to Moses, which are his. And that's the right order that we're here. Even Yeshua said, I'm here to do the Father's will. So in turn, that's what we should be doing, is the Father's will. And his will is to understand the Torah and to apply it. Now, there are some things that are written for only the temple period or the tabernacle, which are the Levites. But others is how we treat one another with respect. And I personally believe that that's gone out in this day and age. And Paul said it, there'll be an apostasy. That has gone so far away from respecting not so much the man, but the word of Yahweh. So what the studies do is that now you have a perspective of how the Father sees it and how the Father wants us to see things. This is his word. These are his commands. These are his will. We have no right to change anything the Father does. And so in that perspective, now you sit back and you realize, that you really want to do what's right. And sometimes doing what's right comes with its challenges. So I believe that studying the Torah, looking at it, how the Father would look at it, or trying to see it that way, will give a lot of people some peace about their lives. They're not going to be so much worried about what a ministry, a people, or other things that may do.
When you transitioned, you shared with us and shared online about how you lost a lot of people, and you see that around the world when people transition to more of a Messianic ministry, they lose a lot of people. How do you deal with that? Do you get a lot of? Is it just a mental, emotional, and spiritual thing, or how is it that you got over that?
Well, nobody likes to see anybody leave. No pastor does. But when they leave they have their reasons. They may tell me and my wife one thing, but of course, when they go out, it's always something else. Yeah. I've been accused of shunning people, preaching over the pulpit to only them, all types of things. But the potential that here in Roswell, from my understanding, that there has been ministries that try to have the Hebraic understanding of the Hebraic way and having a kahila. But over the years, people did not respond to it because it wasn't the order of the day. It wasn't like all the big churches, whether it be here or the other place. So we may get one or many people, but they leave for very different reasons. And some did leave because of the doctrine according to them, has changed. And we are now Jewish, which we are never been Jewish. Right. All right. I've never taken a DNA. My understanding, my family, the Diaz family, originates from Spain. And so there was some Jewish people back in the day who were from Spain. So I don't know if I'm that. But as far as being Jewish, we're not. But we hold to the relationship of Yahweh. And, if they would really sit down and look at what it means to be Jewish, they would know that we're far from that. So I would hope that more people would come to our Shabbats, and we try to make everybody feel as welcome as can be, and to love them. And if they choose to stay, I would hope that, if they're Messianics and they want a place to worship, I think we have a pretty good worship team.
Absolutely.
And we do our best. They work hard at it. and would just come and minister. Now, yeah, people are looking for programs for this, but people generally should be listening to the word, listening to the instruction that are given from the parashas.
That rises up another question. When teaching on Shabbats, I know you like to focus on the weekly parashas. Usually, you taught us that some parashas have two different. I don't like using the word topic because we were not topical kind of ministry, right. But in a sense, parashas is a disciplined topic to teach on and to dissect and try to apply it in our lives. So how is it that you decide which part of the teaching that you choose to teach on our weekly parashas?
Well, in the beginning, it was very difficult, but thank Yahweh that I have a good instructor, and Pastor Otero. And there, like let's say this week, there was from chapter 1 to chapter 4, I believe there are 18 teachings in it. Well, we're not going to get all 18 in. I believe I can only get maybe 2, maybe 3 chapters in, which you try to kind of compact. And there's so much to it, because what we try to do is me personally, where's the application in it? That's what I like to try to do. Where versus others will try to squeeze them all in at one time. Matter of fact, I know that there's different ministries that are Messianic, not here, but they will go through the parashas and they have question and answers right after, which is I would love to do. But trying to get them all in there, like if there's 18 teachings and 18 subjects between chapter 1 to chapter 4, that's very challenging. So maybe one year, like last year, I taught more on the desert, and for this week with a parashah, yes, the wilderness. So what relies and the struggles and so forth in that. This year, we focus more on the Levites who were called, or the men who were called to do the work, as far as taking care of the tabernacle, and the young men that are 20 and over were called for the military. And then we go back to the conduct of those who had to learn how to work within the Levites of the families. Not to say that Yahweh didn't use women or anything, but at this particular time and point, this is what...
I gotta throw that in.
Yeah, because, women want today, there's nothing wrong with women want to, but I believe men teach the congregation and women actually have their own personal teachings, right, and what women teach. But as far as that's basically how we try to break them down. So next year, we on this particular topic of the wilderness, we'll go into another stage. And sometimes I've noticed that we can probably take a time to elaborate just a little bit more, which I try to do and not try to make it so boring like a lot of people think. So it's a struggle. Yeah. It's a struggle.
Well, you do great at it. You said something that raised up a question, and it's a question that people have asked, not only certain people in your congregation or out there when we're trying to witness, but it's a subject, so we're going to go ahead and touch on it. You said the word teacher, that you had a good teacher to instruct you. Dr. Otero in Olive Tree Ministries, he is not your pastor, correct?
No, he's not my pastor.
Do you care to emphasize on that
topic? Meaning like in the world that we came out of, we look at every ministry who has more than 6, 7 churches, 10 churches, 100 churches. There is what they call a senior pastor. And each of those churches have a pastor, but he is the senior. And then, of course, it breaks down into this is the next guy, the next guy, the next guy, and then there's the next guy. Well, this pastor that was mine, when I was in the home, helped me out, which was not a bad thing, all right? But he kind of raised you, and me, I'm not growing up without a father, of course, accepted that at that particular time. And so yes, he becomes like your headship, your head pastor. And so when things happen, such as what we went through, of course, other disciples start to rise up, and we kind of want to do the same thing. I'm your pastor, I'm your leader, I'm this, and we don't want to be gods, but sometimes that's what it ends up to be. So we try to be careful, or at least I try to be careful over the years, because everybody has a different opinion. But when Yahweh is involved with this, it's not, yes, he didn't raise me as a child would raise, but the acceptance of allowing this man to instruct you is a free will thing, and saying, yes, although he didn't raise me, but he has become my pastor. So I trust him enough that he's going to lead me in a direction that I need for my spiritual growth. Because pastors still need to grow, right, and they still need direction. So there are negative sides who follow whatever they're following. Yahweh knows how to bring those individuals in your life that it's needed for you at a particular time. And Pastor Otero was that man who stepped into that role, who just loved me and just accepted me for me. It wasn't, in the beginning I was a preacher that hellfire and brimstone, and I would scream and yell. And he said, oh, that's a special gift. And so it was always, when you turn to another man to confide, age doesn't matter, all these things don't matter. It's the relationship of a good friendship. And that's what I believe that pastors need to do, is not just to be a boss or a leader or a captain or I'm the pastor. It's more of a, if you take the role as the father or son, and the other person takes that, it becomes a good bond, a good relationship. And so that's something that's special to me when Yahweh, and I knew it was Yahweh. I knew it was when the Lord just decided to bring this person in our lives to help us continue to grow. And that's what every pastor needs. We need each other in ways, because we deal with a lot of stuff, and especially in my line, I deal with not just church, I deal with the men's home as well. So I hope I answered that question right.
Yes. Well, I remember hearing Dr. Otero ask the similar question, or repeat the question that was asked to him, and he said, no, we're friends. He's not under me, I'm not over him. Yeah. We're friends, we work right next to each other.
Right.
And I think that's an awesome bond to have.
Yes. But like I said, it's really good to have, we're friends, but then there is a submissiveness. If I submit myself to the teachings, right, and to the respect, and I think it's to me it's one of the best things that's ever happened to me, because the Kindred Spirit of coming together and knowing, hey, this man's been to the places I've never been in my life. And not only that, I mean, he lives Torah. You could see it in his life, and that's what I want. I want to live Torah. I want to live it, Yeshua, to be in my life.
That's awesome. So I think next podcast, a lot of people want to know about the men's home. Seems to always be something about the men's home. And
well, I can give just a little highlights. And we've been here, the men's home's been here since 2006. It'll be 20 years soon. And it's been challenging. Men seem to come back over and over when they we used to believe in graduating a man and moving on with their lives, and those things are kind of rough. But when they struggle in life, they can go to a lot of places, and they've been to, but they know the relationship that I have with a lot of these men in 20 odd years. And I personally was involved with the men's home since 1997. And so, it's a lot of people have questions about, especially women, what is it like, and what do they do, and how come, and even the negative, we've got a lot of negativity, how I control people, how I do this, and they don't realize that what they call control is really structure and discipline. And so, which a lot of the guys, you know for yourself, who come from a drug-induced life in prison, jail, streets, gangs, or whatever, the chaos of their life, they come in and they have no idea what they're getting into until they're here. And the community at times, not all the community, but the negative ones have said a lot of bad stuff. Usually it's different ministries or whatever. But they don't see the ones who are living right and are involved in doing the things that you help them out with and going on, and they're no longer out of their minds, but now they got jobs and now they're doing right, and they moved on, and they'll take a part of Yeshua with them, and they'll take a part of the Torah with them. And I would just hope that they continue to do that life. But yeah, there's a lot more to it, and I would hope that down the line we can have some of the guys come in and share their testimonies. That would be pretty cool.
That'd be great. So we're going to end this here. Do you have anything to say or to invite people to our
Absolutely.
ministry?
If you are free on a Saturday afternoon at 12 o'clock is when we have service, I encourage you or invite you to come out at 101 South Sunset in Roswell, New Mexico. We're here every Shabbat, between 11 and 12. 12 we start our services. We have worship and praise, and just come on down and enjoy the parashas that we have for the week and the instruction. And if you really want to step it up, you can come out on a Thursday night is when we have our services. We're teaching right now the book of Romans, which is a very challenging book. It's dealing right now. We're dealing with the echad, the oneness, the gathering, engrafting. So there's so much to learn, so much to teach. So I would hope if you're in the Roswell area to come on by, or if you're living here and you just want to come check us out, we hope that you would come out and have a great time with us.
Until next time, everyone.
God bless.